In this thyroid story today, I'm chatting with Nikki, who, together with her husband Gary, are the pastors of the church that I go to. And so we have a really interesting conversation about managing that very people-intensive role of being the pastors of a church, setting boundaries, managing stress, taking time out, and how all of that plays out in Nikki's health. I really am grateful for those of you who have shared your thyroid stories on the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast. It's not always easy to talk about our health journeys, but I know that each and every story that's shared reaches different people in different ways. And so enjoy listening to this conversation with Nikki as she shares her thyroid story with all of us. Welcome to Let's Talk Thyroid, where we explore different aspects of living a healthy thyroid lifestyle, positively and practically, to help you thrive and not just survive. Join me, Annabelle Bateman, your host, and Let's Talk Thyroid. This podcast has been proudly supported by, me. I am fully backing my podcast and getting the Let's Talk Thyroid message out to you. If you are interested in purchasing essential oils, that is one of the ways that you can support me and I can support you, and essential oils can support your overall thyroid health and wellness. So if that's something that you would like to add to your health and wellness toolkit of resources that you can access to support you in a number of different ways, send me a message. I'd love to help you find what suits your individual needs and budget. Or you can head to annabellebateman.com and follow the links there to essential oils. But think digestive support, stress management, reducing your toxic load, all sorts of ways that we can use essential oils as part of our overall lifestyle approach to managing health and wellness. All right. Well, hello, Nikki, and welcome to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast. I'm really excited to have you, my friend, on the show today to hear, so that other people can really hear your thyroid story. I'm really excited.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate actually you asking me, because I'm on the journey like so many other people, dealing with the issues and the things that come up along the way. So this is a privilege, absolute privilege.
Oh, well, thanks. It's what I've really learned from doing this and having talked to different people is that we all have our own story and path and journey. And, I think sometimes the word journey can sound a bit, I don't know. I don't always love the way the word journey sounds, but it is true. We do have different paths, but yet I see different underlying themes. And I know, though, that your individual story, unique to you, but will really speak into the lives of different people that are listening.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it has been a journey, and I think sometimes when we look at the word journey, it feels like we're on it for the rest, for a long, long time. But I think one of the things that I've had to do over this journey is to enjoy it as much as I possibly can, even when things crop up with my health. I've had to really say, right, okay, well, we'll deal with this today. This is a day-to-day issue right now, so we'll just learn to deal with this now, and I think that's what's helped me not become too stressed about it.
Before we dive right into it, Nikki, tell us, or for those that don't know you, I will tell you, Nikki is the pastor of the church that I go to with her lovely husband, Gary, who really wanted in on this interview, but we'll have to save him for another day. He wanted to chat about living with someone with a thyroid issue, which I said is another conversation we can have, but not right now. Limelight focuses on you, Nikki. For those that don't know you, which is probably most people, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, well, I've been married to my husband for 34 years now, and we have 3 fantastic adult children. And yeah, so my journey with being a pastor in the local church has been 32 years. a journey of 32 years. So Gary and I were married young. I was 19, he was 21, and we felt, when you're in church circles, and we felt a calling to the ministry, and we haven't looked back. So Gary was 21, I was 23 when Gary was 23 and I was 21 when we went into full-time ministry. So we started in youth ministry. We thought we'd be, ministering to youth for the rest of our life, but then, God opened up different doors. So for those who don't understand that, that's our journey to do with, our love for God. And so, and it's been great. It's had its challenges, working with people every day, and always brings its challenges for all sorts of different personalities, but we love it, and we have never looked back and wouldn't do anything else.
How does your work life fit in with your health? Like, do you see them connected in any way? Is it supportive, or are there challenges that are connected in with your health and your professional life?
I think they work hand in hand, actually. My health is absolutely first, I must say, but my vocation and my work load actually helps me to stay healthy. I have to remind myself that emotional health and mental health is key in my work vocation. So I have to really make sure that I'm looking after that side of myself in particular, because of, the amount of people I see, every day and every week. It can get tiring, but I wouldn't, like I'm saying, I wouldn't not do that. I would do that for the rest of my life. But, I think it works. I think they work hand in hand, and I have to watch myself with my health, that I give myself time and space to do the things that I absolutely love as well outside of my circle.
Yeah, that's good. Well, something that has come up in the last couple of people I've chatted to actually is that concept of, well, in terms of us managing our day-to-day stress and those pressures and the impact that has on our thyroid health, but the concept of setting boundaries and having, that sense of being able to say no, and you said protecting that space. So how have you navigated that? Because that's often a really difficult thing to do. So how have you navigated that?
And that has been a really difficult thing for me to do, because I love helping people, and I love to see them doing very well. And so if they knock on the door, if I've got some free time, in the past I would say, not a problem, let's have a chat. But as I've grown older, I suppose I could say that, as I've gotten older and facing some real health challenges with my thyroid, I have actually found that saying no is okay. How about I fit you into my diary instead of them fitting me into their diary and their world? So I've had to really look at what I have available every week and say yes or no. And so that has been a real challenge for me, because I, in the past, have said yes to everything, and then wondered why I was getting emotionally drained and tired. And I've had to literally learn how to say, no, I can't see you today, I'm so sorry, but I can see you this time next week. And then and put people into my diary that way. So yes, and boundaries have been a big issue with me. So as I've gotten older, I've learned that those boundary lines have actually protected my health and my mental health and my emotional health. And so it's definitely okay to say no.
Yeah, and I like the way you've obviously given that thought. It's not just, no, I don't care about you. You haven't become more selfish as you've gotten older. No. You've become more protective, and really that helps other people. I mean, something that I've learned with people that have strong boundaries is that it actually teaches me to respect their boundaries, but also think more about my own boundaries or lack of boundaries. So I see that in some people I know with really strong boundaries as a real strength.
Yes, that's right. And I've actually enjoyed my life more so, And I've actually enjoyed my vocation a lot more because I can say no, and I'm protecting myself with those boundaries. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I spoke about that on the podcast a few weeks ago and sent people to Henry Cloud's book, Boundaries. So if you're listening, haven't read that, that's just a really good starting point.
That is a brilliant book. Oh, yes. It's awesome, that book. I love it.
So, Nikki, let's go back. Tell us a bit about your thyroid journey in particular. When did you know you had a thyroid issue? Go back to whatever the beginning is for you and tell us what happened.
Wonderful. Well, I was actually 43 years of age when I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroid disease. So I've had now Hashimoto's for 10 years now, and it was an incredible discovery because I'd never heard of Hashimoto's before. I hadn't even thought about a thyroid issue ever in my life, and one day I woke up not being able to catch my breath. So I was having trouble getting that deep breath. And it went on and off all day. And it happened, and that was about 2 days worth of not being able to catch my breath. I'm thinking, okay, what's wrong? I'll just keep drinking lots of water. I think I drank so much water, thinking that it's maybe I'm dehydrated or something. And then it was the third morning I woke up. I hadn't been sleeping properly, and I woke up that third morning, and it just had gotten worse, and I literally could not catch my breath. I started to panic, and I remember Gary saying, "Look, let's just calm down. We don't know what's going on." But it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and he said, "Let's call the doctor." So my doctor's surgery had actually opened up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was one of the first ones to call in. And I said to the receptionist, "I am needing to see a doctor urgently. I am having trouble catching my breath." And she said to me, I'll just get in touch with one of the doctors. And within about, it must have been like seconds, she got back to me and said, "Come in straight away." So I went straight to the surgery up the road, and they actually thought that I was having a mild heart attack. So Gary took me up to the doctor's surgery. They put me in their treatment room and gave me something to breathe into, like a long cylinder, and it was measuring my breath, apparently. So we're going back a long time, and as I recall, I had to breathe in, and they were measuring how I was breathing and how far I could breathe, and I failed 3 times, and I just could not breathe into the cylinder. And so that was a concern straight away. They checked my ankles to see if I was swelling up. There was no swelling, and then they got me to just calm down because I actually was panicking that I couldn't get my breath, which was it's an awful feeling. Obviously, if you've ever had a panic attack, it's an awful feeling not being able to get control of that. One of the nurses gave me a brown paper bag to just breathe in gently and breathe out gently. So I did that for a little while, and I calmed right down. And then my doctor came in and said, "We're going to do some bloods. We're going to take all bloods." They took about 4 vials of blood from me that day. And so when I had calmed down, I was actually breathing okay. They were doing the bloods and they sent them away, and I think they brought them back like within that afternoon. I had one of the results back. So my doctor called me. We went straight back up to the surgery, and which was incredible because it happened that day that I was able to get a result. And she said, "We've found that, Nicola, you have what we called hypothyroidism." And she said, "But you've got the hypothyroidism that was subclinical, and she called it Hashimoto's." And I said, "Okay, and what does that mean?" I said, "I've never heard of that before." And she said, "You have a thyroid disease, and we need to now treat that." And so I started to panic again, going, "Oh, my goodness, does this mean I'm going to die?" I had not ever heard of a thyroid disease or Hashimoto's. I had never heard of Graves' disease. So I was quite concerned, and she calmed me right down again and said, no, we can manage this on thyroxine. It's for thyroid issues, and we will start you on a low dose. So, so for 10 years I've actually been on the same low dose, and I haven't had that increased at all. So I went home that day with my prescription and started that medication basically straight away. And within a few days, I started feeling better. About I could breathe. It was like I could breathe properly. I was catching my breath. But there were other things that I had not realised that I had, which was also to do with the thyroid issue. With foggy thinking, not getting clarity sometimes, that kind of thing. So, and I thought, oh, well, that's just, I'm getting older. But it was actually to do with my thyroid, yeah.
Yeah, that's so common, isn't it? That in retrospect, you look back and you can see what you now know to be symptoms of Hashimoto's, but at the time you didn't know. And I think that's why thyroid issues and Hashimoto's aren't diagnosed early often, because I've gained weight. Well, maybe I've eaten too much, or I've got foggy brain. Maybe I'm just getting older, or I'm tired, or I'm not sleeping. Or, a lot of the symptoms are easy to pass off as other things. So that's, I think, it seems to be pretty common that when you diagnose and then you learn, and I mean, really, I was 23 when I was diagnosed. I didn't know anything about, I probably didn't even know what a thyroid was. I don't really remember I just remember sitting in the car and crying because the endocrinologist told me I'd have to take this pill for the rest of my life. And he sort of said it as if it was nothing, and I was devastated. What do you mean I've got to be on medication for the rest of my life? And don't worry, you'll be right. That's what you've got to do.
That's right. Well, I had this was also on the backdrop of I had just lost my sister. She's 5 years younger than me, and she overdosed on alcohol and drugs. So she wasn't a very well person. And I had just come back home. I just come back from her funeral in Adelaide to Brisbane, and the doctor did tell me that sometimes trauma brings these things to the surface. They've been laying there dormant for a long time, but a trauma or a shock can actually bring it to the forefront. And when she said that, I thought, that's probably maybe that's what happened. And it was actually like 2 weeks later that I had actually just buried my sister. She was 38. So I did think about that.
Yeah, there's a few different things they say can trigger thyroid issues. Is that something else that have you looked into that, or you're just aware that the trauma can be one of the triggers?
Yeah, I actually didn't do that. But now learning over the last few years in particular that there's other family members now I'm hearing of that's got Hashimoto's. So cousins, second cousins.
Oh, right, okay. So a few different people. Were you aware if your sister did, or?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, she's got no problem. She's 76. No thyroid issues. She's nothing other than bad knees.
Well, that's probably pretty good for her. And it's funny that genetic, I mean, my understanding is you have to have a genetic predisposition, and which is often why there is obviously then family connection. And I had thought I was a bit of a genetic anomaly until my mum was diagnosed just about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago now. It was funny because I said to her, I feel like somehow I've given this to you, that I've had it for so long that somehow I've passed it on to you. Clearly, obviously that can't have happened that way, but there is that, certainly that genetic disposition. So, Nikki, when your doctor said Hashimoto's, take some thyroxine, were you given any other advice at that point in time about any other ways to manage your thyroid health?
Not at all. that my doctor, as wonderful as she is, that was it. She said, this will help. And we do blood tests every 6 months to see if you need to go up or down in your medication. She said, but you will definitely have to have this medication for the rest of your life. But yeah, there was nothing dietary, or there was nothing to help manage really anything else. It was just this little pill that was going to be my miracle.
And so have you done anything else other than take your thyroid pills? Yeah.
Yes,
So
I have.
What else have you done, and how have you come across that information?
Yes, so what I did was I called a friend, and she's a very, very good friend, and she told me, she said, Nikki, you probably need to go and see a naturopath, because I was telling her about, I was still getting this foggy thinking. I wasn't getting clarity like I used to, and I got a little bit dizzy, actually. Every now and again I got dizzy, and so she said to me, Nikki, why don't you go and find a really good naturopath and see what the natural side of medicine can do for you, because she was one avid natural person. She loved natural medicine, and she said that has helped me through and through. So I did that. I went on my journey. I found a really good naturopath in the city, and she looked at my blood tests, which was fantastic, and she could read straight away some of the things that I had been struggling with. And she asked me lots of questions. Are you going through this? Do you do this? Do you feel this? All this to do with my thyroid. She asked me what my diet was. So one of the things she said to me was she talked about going gluten-free and also getting off dairy. And she asked me how I felt when I was on dairy. And I said, well, I actually feel really yuck, but I'm still drinking it. I don't know why. And so I said, I just changed to skim milk and see if that felt better. And she said, well, let's try and eliminate some things, and then we'll add them back in later. So we eliminated the gluten, anything gluten. So we did that first, and I found that I felt so much better. I didn't get any bloating. I didn't feel that sense of sluggishness after you'd have a bowl of pasta at night. You'd go, I need to go to bed, have a sleep. So that was the bonus. She then wanted me to introduce it back into my diet. This was a couple of months later. And so all those symptoms came back. And so what I've done is I've just cut out gluten, full stop. Some people haven't agreed with me, but it's actually, I've felt a lot better off gluten. And I figured if I feel a lot better off gluten, I'm going to stay off gluten. And also dairy was one of those. I love milk in my coffee and my tea, and I just love milk. But I notice now that not being on milk, my gut feels better. I don't feel sick. Like milk was making me actually feel sick, like I wanted to throw up. So I've gone off milk and I feel a lot better. I've only actually done that in the last few years, and I will not go back to that. So I feel for the calcium intake, I either take some calcium tablets or I do my nuts, so almonds and that kind of thing for my calcium intake. So so they were the main two. The other one, what she wanted me to do was I love my broccoli and I love my cauliflower. Cabbage was a bit harsh for me. So she said that my naturopath said, why don't we try coming off the crucifixus? Is it crucifixus?
Cruciferous?
Yeah, cruciferous. Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And try that. But I love those foods, and she said that sometimes they can be a thyroid blocker. But then I've read other stuff about that, and so I just make sure it's all cooked very well.
Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a mix.
Yeah.
mixed information. I've read that too. So
yeah, that's right. But yeah, so no, but it was the gluten and the dairy, and since then I've learnt that grains can be an issue, and because there was still something not right sitting with me when I was eating. And so, yeah, so I've gone off a few of those things, but definitely gluten and dairy for me personally. Other people can still eat that stuff, but not I feel I can't. So, yeah.
Oh, and that's where we're all different, isn't it? And we are all different, but they're the two that certainly seem to be the most recurrent problems for those of us with Hashimoto's. So it sounds like a lot of that dietary information came through from the naturopath. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And I did also, because I wanted to know all about Hashimoto's, I Googled so much information. I read so many books on thyroid health, and then I think I wore myself out.
Yeah.
And I wore myself out with too much information, and then I just started to relax and just go with what the doctor recommended and the naturopath recommended, and find my feet myself on what I felt comfortable with. One of those things, obviously, is managing stress. So I've had to learn how to do that.
Yeah. So how have you done that? That's the $1 million question that we all want to know the answers to. Seems that it's a common problem for us thyroid warrior women is managing stress. So tell us your secrets. I'm not suggesting that you have it all. I know we're all on this process, but tell us what have you tried, what's worked, what hasn't?
Yes. And I think too, stress management is a long-term thing for us now in society. But obviously hormones have triggered my stress. My thyroid definitely has triggered stress for me. So internal stress, environmental stresses for me as well. So what I have had to learn how to do is I've had to walk away, have my time by myself. Now, for me personally, that is going into my backyard, because I have this great big backyard, which is amazing, and just sit without anyone around. I actually love going to the beach. I love the ocean, and sometimes I'll get there, sometimes I won't, but just sitting, if I can get a chance to go up the coast, because we live in Brisbane, go up the coast and just sit and watch that water, watch the ocean, that actually helps me to relax. So if I'm having quite a busy few months, I will just go and drive up to the north coast and just sit there and just look at the water on the beach. I won't even go in the water. So that actually helps me to relax. I find that the ocean is very therapeutic for me personally. Music has helped. Music. I listen to a lot of music that I feel that, is good for me to listen to. I get away and I'll read a book, and I have to pick up a book that has nothing to do with my job.
Yeah. So it's an escape book. It's not a
yes. Yeah. That's right. It's
not how to be a better pastor. Not
absolutely.
Not even the Bible.
Oh, that's right. No, I literally have to just pick up something that's just helping me, and also watching a really stupid movie on TV just to get my mind off things. So there's some of the things that I actually helps me.
It sounds like a lot of that's about settling your mind and just a distraction from thinking through all the different, worries or things to do or.
Absolutely. And also I love I use some essential oils as well. So I've been doing that for over a year now, and some of the essential oils that I use are actually, the aroma just is beautiful. So that goes throughout the whole house. So yeah, so they're the things that I like to do to help me relax and to help me de-stress, and also going for walks. I love my walking. I am a runner. I love running, but walking actually helps me de-stress as well.
Interesting that you bring up running too, because I think different forms of exercise, some of our bodies seem to cope better than others. So do you find running still works for you?
Yes, I do. I've always been a runner. Even when I was in my primary school years, I was a runner. But I find that walking's better, but I still love a run, probably a couple of times a week. And I find that doesn't over stress my body. It doesn't tend to overstress me.
Yeah, maybe having always been a runner might help.
Yeah, that's true.
I was never a runner. Every time I tried to run, something would get injured and hurt. And I remember for years my chiropractor saying to me, Annabelle, you're not really a runner. You're not built to be a runner. And I'm like, I'm going to run. Because why would you walk when you can run? Why would you want to do something calm and gentle? That seems like a waste of time. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to go hard. And then I did a 10K, I don't know why people call them fun runs, but a 10K fun run and I got a friend of mine, my beautiful friend Bernice, she is like a runner, like a real runner. And I said, would you do this with me? But she ran with me. For her, it was like going for a walk, I think. And I was like dying. And at the end, I'm like, I don't have to run again. I've done it. I've achieved my goal. Done. Don't have to run anymore. And I don't think I've ever run since, except maybe I don't know, not even to catch a bus.
That's it. I took Gary once on a 6-kilometre run, and obviously I got home first before him, and he's like literally dying and coming up the driveway, and he goes, "No, done it, been there, done that. I'm never doing it again."
Yeah, I think I'm on Team Gary. But I know that, with Hashimoto's, and like you said, you've worked out that running a couple of times a week doesn't put that stress on your body. Whereas for me, if I was to run a couple of times a week, even if I was fitter than I am now, I think that still would put that stress on my body. And we're very different, shapes and builds and all of that. So I think I guess like with the food, we've all got to find the form of exercise that works for us too.
Yeah, true.
And so you mentioned essential oils before. Have you got a favourite?
The citrus oils. So first thing in the morning, peppermint and wild orange goes into my diffuser. And there's something about it. They activate your senses in that way, in a sense, because of the citrus in them. And peppermint has always been one of those refreshing oils that wake you up and get you going. So that goes on in the mornings, and it really does help everyone in the household get up and get going. It's a real good motivator. So I find that those two oils in particular, the first thing in the morning, because some days I know when I'm really tired and my thyroid is a bit sluggish is when you don't want to get out of bed, regardless of the workload for me personally. But I know that you get to know your body. So some days has been really difficult to get out of bed. And I'm going, I'm sluggish today. Why? What did I eat last night? What did I drink before I went to bed? What did I drink yesterday or eat? There's something that's triggered it, the sluggishness. So I'll go back through my diet. But what I do is I get up and I put my oils on, and which helps me to refocus and get some energy back.
Yeah, so there's those tools to deal with it in the moment, but also the self-reflection to look back and think what got me to this point, what triggered it. And, I've read a lot recently just about triggers, thyroid triggers. Yeah, and I guess, again, they're different for all of us, but food triggers are common.
Like overeating at night, the night before, is obviously one for me. If we're having a great big roast dinner, or even at the lunchtime that day before, I'll think, what did I have for lunch? Like, what was in my lunch that's now triggered it? Was there some dairy, or was there, gluten that I wasn't aware of? So I'm quite vigilant now on my diet, especially when coming into the 50s, and I know I'm heading up, toward the 60s. Oh my goodness, it gets better. You're fine up until a year, those years, and then all of a sudden it's like bang, bang, bang. It's like, can you slow down now? Come on, body, just enjoy. But I think for me, having a thyroid issue, it's actually been very educational in the family. So if Stephanie, my daughter, has said, Mum, I'm just feeling really yuck, I feel really tired, I'm feeling bloated, I'm not thinking straight. Even if she goes and has a blood test and her bloods come back in the normal range, which often is the case, I'll say, well, something's still not right. So she will eliminate certain things like the gluten and a dairy. She doesn't have dairy now. She'll drink some almond milk, which seems to help her. So she's getting in touch with her body as well, because of what I've gone through with mine. So it's actually been a good wake-up call for all of us in our home.
Yeah, I think when you realise that when you've got a long-term health issue to deal with, it does force you to be healthier.
Yes, it does, doesn't it? Yes.
I mean, if I didn't have to worry about looking after my thyroid health, I wouldn't be as healthy as I am now. I know that. So I suppose that's often what it takes is a health crisis or an issue for us to have to really examine our diet, our lifestyle, all of those things, because why would you put those restrictions on yourself if you didn't have to?
I reckon.
Yeah. I mean, that's human nature, isn't it? We just wouldn't.
No, that's right.
So, Nikki, if you were to look back and offer yourself a couple of tips, if you were had to start this journey again, what would you say to Nikki 10 years ago?
Laugh more. Just laugh more. I think I was too serious. I was too serious in my whole demeanour, too serious in my role. Serious, I think the other thing I would say is learn how to manage stress. I was thrown in the deep end at 43. My whole, everything changed. I was on a medication for life. I was having to deal with stress, the triggers for it. I went on a very high learning curve. If I was, if I look back on my young life, I would say, okay, let's learn to manage stress now. Yeah, so learn to laugh, learn to manage stress. As hard as that is, find areas in your own world that can help you with that. Maybe there's people in your world that can help you with that. Things in your world that can help you with that stress, but manage it now, because stresses will come, and sometimes they'll come too many things at once, and it will overwhelm you. So that's what I was feeling back then. I was feeling quite overwhelmed. The other thing is say no. Learn to say no. If I was 20 years ago, if I was able to learn how to say no and prioritise my world and put some boundaries up, I think managing the stress would have been easier. I think I would have enjoyed my younger years a lot more. So laugh, manage stress as much as you can, and put those boundaries up, say no, and give yourself some time, just you, and have that space where this is your time now, not everybody else's.
And so has your faith played a role in that?
It has. My faith has played a big role in that. I would literally, I'm a Christian, so, and this is a very Christian thing to say for those people who aren't in my world and understand that, but I would talk to God. I would go and spend time talking to God, reading my Bible. That's my space, and if I do that actually every day, I find some time to be able to do that. So my faith has played a big role in how I have managed my world now, how I've said no, managed my diet, and also helped me with stress as well, because it's calmed me down. It's really, it's how it's happened for me in my faith and my walk with God. So my relationship with God is of utmost importance in my world. Yes, in my life. He comes first.
Yeah, so you've had that a different strength to draw on. There's probably the expression
exactly
I was looking for.
That's right, and that's a great way to say it. He has been my strength to draw from. especially when you've had to face life issues like losing my sister. I lost my brother when I was 30. He was 27 when he died. So, you know, my faith played a big part in how I walked the journey through grief both times. And I hang on to that, and God has been my source of strength in those times and in many times of my life.
Yeah, so those big times, but also in the day-to-day stress.
Absolutely. That's right. And handing those stresses over to him, only that I've known how to do. I hand them over to him and say, God, this is your day, and I'm going to trust you with my day and walk with you through this day. So that's how I've just managed my stress in a lot of ways. And there's a hope in that as well. So we all hope in something. Maybe that's for someone even listening to this today, Annabelle, that, you know, where does your hope come from? And my hope comes from God. You know, He is my source of hope. That's why I think I can wake up, even though I might be tired, I can still hope in God and have a smile on my face and say, well, I'm ready to face the day, you know. So, yeah. I think one of the things that that's helped me actually is not be so hard on myself when we're dealing with the stress. Don't be so hard on yourself. If you make a mistake, then you've made a mistake. You've got to learn how to move on from that. So that's just to do with with stresses in particular. So for me personally, yeah.
Yeah, but that's really good advice. It's easy to say that, and it's harder to do, though, isn't it?
It is.
Maybe that as we get older, and it's certainly something that has come up in some of these conversations in the past has been that there seems to be a bit of, you know, some personality aspects of those of us with thyroid issues where we do like to help people and maybe be a bit more people pleasing, and high expectations put that pressure on ourselves. So to me, what you're saying there is let go of some of that. That in dealing with this, managing that stress is like, let go, be kinder to yourself. Don't worry so much what other people think.
Absolutely. And don't crucify yourself so much. Just enjoy who you are. Look at who you are and enjoy you. Enjoy you. Your likes, your dislikes. Enjoy yourself. So, yeah. I think we learn that as we get older. I think we come to an understanding as we get older. We're getting older. So we come to this realization that, hang on, I'm 50 years of age now. I need to really start to think for these next, 40, 50 years. I want to enjoy myself. I want to enjoy me and my family. And so I think sometimes we do that too late.
Did you know that one of the things that I offer is a free 30-minute strategy session? So if you want the opportunity to sit down with me, talk about your health goals and make a plan, create some action steps, or just talk things through with someone who gets it, then more than happy for you to book in for a strategy session. I'll put the link to that in the show notes. Send me a message and I'd love to connect with you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast and share it with others that you know with thyroid problems. Let's get the message out there. If you'd like to connect with me further, the best place to do that is via my website, annabellebateman.com. From there, you'll be able to join my Facebook group, book a strategy session with me, download my freebie, and access any show notes for this episode. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
The information presented and discussed in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and should not be used as a substitute for proper advice from a qualified professional.